And now we'll begin our service and let Lisa Brents come up and light our chalice.
I light this chalice with these words. Open our eyes to see what is beautiful. Open our minds to learn what is true. Open our hearts to love one another. Please join me in the affirmation of the covenant, which you will find printed in your order of service, saying,
Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other.
It's a good thing to have all the props pulled out from under us occasionally, she said. It gives us some sense of what is rock under our feet and what is sand. That's a hard word for us today, though it does bring to mind those words of Thomas Jefferson. Under governments wherein the will of everyone has just influence, the people enjoy a precious degree of liberty and happiness. It has its evils too, the principal of which is the turbulence to which it is subject, but I prefer dangerous freedom to quiet slavery. Even this evil is productive of good. It prevents the degeneracy of government and nourishes a general attention to the public affairs. I hold that a little rebellion now and then is a good thing and as necessary in the political world as storms in the physical. It is a medicine necessary for the sound health of government. And a little rebellion now and then pulls the props out from under us. How then do we trust in a better future? The hope that we can unite in preventing the degeneracy of government is hard to see, let alone to feel these days. We are unsure what is rock and what is sand under our feet. We are unsure even about the virtues of rock and sand beyond the narrow scope of keeping our feet. A rock is solid beneath our feet, but what grows in rock? It is difficult and tiring to walk on sand, but what do they spread over grass seed? Sand. Where something grows, where there is life, there is at least a trace of something, soil, water, light, to nourish it. Lichens grow on rock, but feed themselves with light. The weeds that break up the concrete walk find soil beneath and sun above. Very specialized plants secrete acids that let them take nutrients out of rock directly. What is made of sand soon erodes. What is built on sand soon falls unless firm piers are driven deep in to make a stable base. Rock is a good building material, but drive piers into it if you can, and it may split and crumble. We might prefer rock to stand on, but are we just going to stand there, or are we going to do something? In his 1967 address to the 10th annual session of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, titled, "Where do we go from here?" The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. told the delegates, the road ahead will not always be smooth. There will still be rocky places of frustration and meandering points of bewilderment. There will be inevitable setbacks here and there will be those moments when the buoyancy of hope will be transformed into the fatigue of despair. Our dreams will sometimes be shattered and our ethereal hopes blasted. But difficult and painful as it is, we must walk on in the days ahead with an audacious faith in the future. When our days become dreary with low-hovering clouds of despair, when our nights become darker than 1,000 midnights, let us remember that there is a creative force in this universe working to pull down the gigantic mountains of evil, a power that is able to make a way out of no way and transform dark yesterdays into bright tomorrows. Let us realize that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. You might know that last familiar line is Dr. King's refinement of a passage from a sermon titled On Justice and Conscience by a 19th century Unitarian, the Reverend Theodore Parker. Addressing his megachurch, the 28th Congregational Society, which met in the 2,500-plus seat Boston Music Hall, Parker confessed, "I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eye reaches but a little ways. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience. And from what I see, I am sure it bends toward justice." Conscience was Parker's corrective lens for his eyes' nearsightedness. It showed him, less by vision than by divination, that the moral universe bends toward justice. And what makes the universe we live in a moral universe? We do. Acting on the authority of conscience. Parker's faith and hope was that we all, or at least the overwhelming majority of us, have a conscience by which to divine justice and just action. You might not know that another phrase in King's preceding sentence, "There is a creative force in this universe," is also one he borrowed from a Unitarian. His doctoral thesis at Boston University was titled A Comparison of the Conception of God in the Thinking of Paul Tillich and Henry Nelson Wyman. A creative force in this universe was Unitarian theologian Henry Nelson Wyman's conception of God. Recent scholarship by the Martin Luther King Jr. Papers Project at the King Institute at Stanford University has revealed that as a student at Crozer Theological Seminary and Boston University, King frequently appropriated the words of other writers without proper attribution. But I think what King did was to rescue apt phrases from their sources' poor articulation. I mean, listen to Theodore Parker stumble around. "I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eye reaches but a little ways. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by the experience of sight." What a digression. But now he tries to get back on track. "I can divine it by conscience. And from what I see, I am sure it bends toward justice." But do you see it or don't you, Teddy? King rescued that meander. We don't quote Parker, we quote King. Wyman had a different problem. Concerned with the relationship of science, philosophy, and religion, he seemed determined to translate theological ideas into scientific terms. This made him very hard to read and to understand. His last easily digestible book, Methods of Private Religious Living, which anyone else at the time would have titled Prayer, was published in 1929, and that was only his third book. Most of what he published came later, the last in 1975, the year of his death. The problem was so bad that Professor Cedric Hepler could report in a book review in 2015 that although several scholars have written extensively on Wyman, they have tended to concentrate on what has been dubbed the most important aspect of Wyman's thought, namely his concept of God. And these scholars, still more narrowly, have tended to treat Wyman's concept of God based on only one book by Wyman, The Source of Human Good. This leaves a great deal of what Wyman had to say about his concept of God unattended to. The Source of Human Good is also the only book of Wyman's on the UUA's reading list for ministerial candidates. There used to be another one. And it's easily avoided. The instructions over the 8 titles where it is included say, choose one text each from 2 of the following 4 20th century authors. Apparently, we're less concerned than Hepler with Wyman's legacy. Talk about having the props pulled out from under us. King had a good ear for the apt phrase. In times when our hopes are dashed and we feel powerless, it helps to think of God, if that floats your boat, as a creative power that can make a way out of no way and supply new hope, or of the universe as always bending toward justice that we witness being violated. King spoke of our motivation to work for justice as a divine dissatisfaction, thus conferring a blessing on that unpleasant feeling. In 1967, King looked around and saw 3 powerful, daunting, interwoven evils plaguing our country: racism, economic exploitation, and militarism. And then he listened around for what would help people gathered to hear him to trust in a better future. My colleague Molly Hausch Gordon has lifted up the fact that both Theodore Parker in his stumbling version and Dr. King in his eloquent one were confessing that sometimes it is hard to know how to respond effectively to injustice, especially in overwhelming and confusing times. And she offers a few questions for figuring out how to get up and help bend the arc of our moral universe. She asks, whose dignity is most at risk? Who is most vulnerable? And what are they asking of us? And how do I say yes? Commitment comes before certainty, she says. We live in the bending. When we don't know who to listen to, her questions counsel us first to pay attention to those with the most urgent needs and to listen to their perspectives. Call it attention triage. And then, assessing your own resources to help, move to action. Yes, I can offer this. All around us, our neighbors here in Little Rock are meeting, talking, organizing. Some of us here are already involved, as we saw. One more thing that helps us to trust in a better future is when we share with each other what we know about how our neighbors are out there bending the arc. The news will let us know all the horrible things that are happening. Let's keep our balance here by keeping one another informed of the good organizing, the good public witness, the good education and advocacy work, the good direct service, the good trouble, all the good bending that's going on locally these days. Because the arc of the moral universe does bend toward justice when we're all out there bending. So let us bend, so may it be. Amen.
I invite our chalice lighter, Lisa, up to extinguish our chalice. And please join in saying our closing words, which are in your order of service. Go out into the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all beings.
And may we all get out there and bend.